When it comes to horror games, I tend to become a bit jaded. When I was younger, horror came in the form of big screams and sudden pop-ups, something we refer to now as jump scares, but back then I found them so terrifying that even a Gmod map was enough to put the fear of God in me. But once that scare subsides, it's over. It's a fade to the main menu, and you try again to survive against whatever was chasing you or trying to find you. Jump scares are still effective, so yes, they do still scare me. Shit, I had to split. The market is so saturated with these kinds of games that there's really no need to recommend them. People will be able to pick their poison based on what they might find interesting. So when I got older, the thrill of jump scares mostly left, and I was wondering what horror really had left for me. That's when I found Junji Ito, renowned horror manga artist and short-form storyteller. I'm not too familiar with the majority of his work, but my mum thought it was a great idea to give a 15-year-old the full collection of Uzumaki, a story about a town undergoing a supernatural phenomenon that twists people's minds to become obsessed with spirals. That synopsis doesn't sound great and it really doesn't do it justice, but their madness and their obsession drove many people to the point of suicide, disfigurement, and eventually an unbreakable curse that swallows the entire town, leaving the protagonist of the story to become part of the never-ending spiral. The idea of the horror behind Uzumaki was that it was unexplainable, but had visible patterns that you thought you could eventually escape. The unfortunate truth of that is that with a perpetual spiral, there was never a beginning to it, and there never will be an end. This concept is known as cosmic horror, originally derived from H.P. Lovecraft from works such as The Call of Cthulhu and The Shadow over Innsmouth, both of them mentioning the Old Ones as an unexplained collection of entities that are unknowable but immeasurable in power, often described as being able to end the world on a whim, but never malevolently. As humans, we are at the top of the food chain due to our intelligence, but Lovecraft sought to make that comfort we feel at the top be our downfall, and chose to make something that not only is above us, but so far above we have little to no chance to fight this off, our only hope being that we have to accept the doomed world and inevitability of death. Discovering any real evidence of any of this going on is intentionally made to seem like mad ramblings, something so far away from the norm and what we consider truth that we pass it off as insanity or fictitious. A famous quote from H.P. Lovecraft is, "The oldest and strongest emotion of mankind is fear, and the oldest and strongest kind of fear is fear of the unknown." To an old one, we're merely flies or bacteria, too small to notice or care for, easy enough to dispatch or get rid of, but never truly worth the effort or even worth considering. The idea of cosmic horror is never about the protagonist winning or surviving, but they're merely a tool for the author to capture the world around them before they see their own fate. And that is where Signalis comes in, a survival horror game developed by Rose Engine and published by Humble Games and Playism. I'm gonna be honest, I'd never heard of these studios before I'd even played Signalis, and I don't expect you to either. It plays as a top-down shooter with puzzle elements and plays very similar to like mainstream horror franchises like Silent Hill and Resident Evil. Lots of room searching, lots of enemies that get back up, and moving through the area as you collect more stuff and solve more puzzles. The first thing you might notice about the game is its art style. It's got a blend of both late 90s PlayStation 1 and pixel art anime that depicts a totalitarian dystopian future. The game starts off with a command. The first thing you might notice is you are a robot, a replica to be exact, designated LSTR or Land Survey Ship Technician Replica. We just call them Elster for short. It also means magpie in German, thanks Signalis Wiki. Replicas are biomechanical humanoids given unit designations based upon their specific role. You are lifted up out of a pod inside the ship and booted up to explore your surroundings, finding out you are part of something called the Penrose program. The Penrose program is designed to send spaceships out into the far reaches of space to find suitable worlds for inhabitants or resources for the Yusan regime. And it looks like you've crash-landed on one. The crew usually consists of a Gestalt pilot and an Elster unit. A Gestalt meaning any member of the Yusan regime that isn't a replica. If you walk around the ship for a bit, you end up finding another pod, and presumably it's for another member of the crew. Its glass is seemingly opaque, and attempting to open it will give us this close-up, first-person angle of the controls for the pod. However, right now, you probably don't know the code for this, so now it's time for my new favourite verb. Introducing backtracking, exploring, combining, and solving, or BEX for short. As you do some BEX around the ship, we're treated to another first-person section where you can see a spacesuit storage, where one is seemingly missing. Well, thanks for waking me up before you left, I guess, you bitch. We can see we need a keycard to access the suit, so what time is it? It's BEX time. We find a control panel in a first-person section and a monitor that tells us that the Gestalt pilot, A. Young, has no signal on board the ship. We also find some sellotape. This will come in handy later. Assuming that A. Young is the other Gestalt member of the ship and the spacesuit is missing, we can kind of put the pieces together that they're not on the ship and they left without us. The next first-person section takes us into the cockpit. Interacting with various parts of the ship, we now know that not only was there an electrical failure, but the ship probably won't ever fly again. We are stranded here. We find a photo attached to the scanner and pick it up, where we're introduced to a pretty niche but neat design choice to inspect the photo in our menu system. Not only do we learn that the girl's name is Ariane Young, but we also find a 3x3 grid with red squares marked out, the combination to the other pod on the ship. Combining the sellotape and the snap keycard, we get a full keycard, allowing us to get our spacesuit and hightail it after our Gestalt pilot. Moving forward, we see a perfectly square monolith humming as we get closer and closer to it. Once we pass through, we're treated to something any normal person would usually stay very, very clear from. A perfectly circular, blood-red hole in the ground with steps descending into it. Definitely an OSHA violation, I'm just putting it out there. Once we get down, we find a tunnel inside the hole. Having nowhere else to go, we crawl through, and of course, the game couldn't just teleport you to the other side of the hole. No, that's too easy. This is another first-person section. You are brought face to face, and I really hope you don't have claustrophobia. Getting closer, you're able to see an office space, a very small room. And once inside, you can begin exploring your surroundings. First, there's a computer screen, but it's seemingly blank. There are photographs of an island and a coastline, the flag of the glorious Yusan regime, and when we turn around, no tunnel. Yeah, there's no way of going back now. In the corner, we see a safe padlocked 3 times over with chain safe door. Another locked door with a ominous red glow behind it, and lastly, a tome laying on the desk named The King in Yellow. For the uninitiated, The King in Yellow is a collection of short stories made by Robert W. Chambers, published in 1895, the first 4 of which are loosely connected by a mysterious and malevolent gothic entity, known only as The King in Yellow. The latter stories, however, tail off from the supernatural and macabre tones towards romantic fiction, which will make a lot more sense later. Picking up the book starts a radio transmission, and I'm just gonna let this play out. So, what are you waiting for? This is the part of the video where I tell you, go buy the game, go play the game, and then come back to these reviews. My original intention was for me to go through all of the events of Signalis, and then try to piece it together throughout the entire video. However, as the project just went on, it got a little bit too complicated, so I've decided to make it more of an episodic format, and if you want to see more of that, please let me know in the comment section below. With this new format, I'll be able to go more in depth than what I originally planned to do. However, if you do decide to go down this rabbit hole with me, just be aware that there are going to be spoilers, so if you are at all interested in this game, I highly recommend picking it up. It sits at around £20 on Steam, which is really, really good, and if you do want to get it from a key site, there's usually cheaper copies out and about somewhere. However, I fully believe that you should support the developers on this one because they are extremely talented people. I did buy the game, unfortunately not a physical copy because that would have been awesome. I can't get into why having a physical edition of the game would make it any different, but without revealing a little bit of a spoiler for the story going forward, as much as I'd love to. But once again, if you do want to see any more Signalis content on this channel, please let me know in the comments section below and share it, do whatever you want to do because I do have a lot planned for this. But I really respect that you got to this portion of the video and thank you so much for supporting me. So for those of you watching in a playlist, now's the time for episode 2!